Huh? What are you doing in my swamp?
Hello everybody, this is Overboy and I'm going to be doing my review for the new movie, Malignant. While this movie isn't brand new, it came out in September, it still is a pretty new movie, so I'm going to keep it spoiler free because it's going to be a hard movie to talk about without spoiling it, but I'm going to keep it spoiler free because if you haven't seen it, it would totally ruin the experience of getting to see this movie because it has some really crazy twists and turns. But so in this movie, a woman named Madison is starting to have visions of people being murdered only to realize the events are happening in real life. And that's all I'm going to say about the plot. I'm not going to explain why she's having these visions or anything because it would totally ruin the movie. Like I said, this is a really insane movie, but it is a blast. It's directed by James Wan, who is one of those directors. I love a lot of his movies, but I don't like a lot of them too, because he did the Conjuring movies. I'm not a big fan of those two movies, and I thought Aquaman was okay, but I've never denied, though, even in those movies, that I'm not as big of a fan of. His directing is always great and everything, and this movie is no exception. He does a very great job directing this movie, and there's some awesome shots throughout the movie, like the way the camera's just hovering over the rooms in the house as she's going through the rooms and stuff. That I always thought that was really cool, and everything, and like his directing is just really great in here, and the cinematography in here is really good too, and I love the atmosphere of the movie. Like it feels dreadful throughout the whole movie. It has this really dreadful, creepy atmosphere and everything. And this is also kind of like a greatest hits for completion for James Wan, because like there's little elements that remind me of a lot of his previous movies. You got little parts where it feels like a detective movie, kind of like how Saw was, and you also get some pretty brutal violence in here like in Saw, but you also have the feeling of the Conjuring movies, that especially during the first 40 minutes or so of it, it kind of feels like a Conjuring movie with the way this thing is going on with the presence of in this house and stuff. And then towards the end of it, you get a little bit of a scene where it's kind of like an action movie, kind of like his movie Death Sentence, which is to me one of his most underrated movies. So it kind of has a little bit of everything that you would expect from James Wan, and it was really interesting how they did this movie, and I really enjoyed it. I will say that Joseph Bashar's score was it was okay, nothing super great. There's way better movie scores, but it was okay. Kind of just felt like your generic horror movie score that you get in the mainstream horror movies nowadays. So it wasn't like anything great, but it was okay. There were parts of it where it was pretty good though. And the cast, I think, are all pretty good in here. Annabelle Wallis plays Madison, and I think she does a pretty good job, and McKenna Grace plays a younger version of her in flashback scenes, which was pretty cool. And the rest of the cast, most of them I didn't recognize, but I thought they were all good in their roles and everything. And the voice of this presence, this character called Gabriel, he's voiced by Ray Chase, and he's got a really awesome and creepy voice that it gave me Ghostface vibes, except his voice is even more creepy than Ghostface, if that makes sense. But like I like that too. Like it seemed like they were kind of paying tribute to Scream and other horror movies too. And I heard that he took a lot of influence from Dario Argento's work, which unfortunately I've only seen one of those movies, but just from the one movie I've seen, I could see the inspiration in this movie. The only one I'd seen was Suspiria. I could see a little bit of that inspiration in here. But this has some really great moments and everything, and it's a really great movie. I'm very surprised at how much I liked it, and I almost went to see it in the theater a few times back when it first came out, and I never did, and I'm really regretting it now because that movie was amazing. It's definitely one of my favorite movies of the year for sure, and I definitely would recommend it. There's not a lot else I can say about it though, because I don't, like I said, I'm not going to spoil it because this is a pretty crazy movie. But every time I thought that I had the story figured out and stuff, it would take a different turn, and then it got to the end of it and it just totally went off the wall crazy in the best way. Like it was something I never expected, something I've never really seen in a movie before that I can think of. So I think they did a really great job with it, and it's a really great movie and everything. I don't know if we'll ever get any sequels to it and stuff because it didn't do very great at the box office, so we might not ever get any sequels. And it's one of those that if they do make more, that would be cool, but if they don't, that's okay too. It's like one that it doesn't have to have a franchise, but if it did turn into one, I'd be welcoming it. And also it has some really good gore and stuff in here too. Really the worst thing about it though with the gore is there is a little bit of parts during towards the end of it where it's kind of like an action movie for a few minutes. The gore is CGI at some parts of it, and it kind of sticks out really bad. But aside from that, I don't really have any complaints. It mostly relied on good practical effects and stuff, and to me it worked really good. And the little bit of CGI that was in here wasn't very good, but I think that was just because of the budget and stuff that they kept it. Since it was a smaller budget movie, they had limited CGI to work with and stuff. Because James Wan is really good at using CGI, and obviously because of Aquaman and the CGI work he did add in the Fast and the Furious movie where they had the CGI Paul Walker looks really good. So I think that it's just the budget of this movie was a lot smaller than those. That's why the CGI didn't look as good. But it was only for briefly towards the end of it, so it doesn't really bother me. It doesn't ruin the movie and everything. So I'm gonna give Malignant a 9.5 out of 10. It's a really awesome movie. It totally took me by surprise on how good it was, and it looked interesting, but I didn't expect to like it near as much as I did. It's definitely one of my favorite horror movies of the year for sure, and it's probably going to be in my top 10 favorites of the year, maybe more than likely. I absolutely love this movie. I haven't really done my top 10 list yet. I'm still kind of working on it and working on watching some other movies that I haven't seen yet to see if they could fit in there. So we'll see if it does fit in there or not. But anyway, yeah, so let me know in the comments what you think of Malignant, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and have a good day, everybody.